Hello and welcome to Ward Talk, CTN's look at the political scene in Ann Arbor. I'm your host, Bonnie Gabowitz. We'll be discussing issues and solutions with the city council members from our 5 wards each month. Joining us today is Lisa Disch from Ward 1. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure not only to see you again, but to be here in the studio in person. So that's an extra plus for today.
It sure is.
And this being November of 2022, we've just had election. We've had a lot going on with all kinds of commissions and committees and meetings. So let's just start with Ward 1, whom you represent. Let's find out about Ward 1. I know there's a lot of development and infrastructure going on.
Yeah, we have some really great new things happening in Ward 1. We will have 2 new EV, electric vehicle chargers, along North Ingalls and East Kingsley in the Carytown area, or the actually west side is the way the residents like to speak of it. And these EV chargers are to serve people who live in multi-unit dwellings who don't have a designated parking spot or a garage. And that's really important because if you don't have a garage, typically,
well, yeah,
you know.
And just to add, from my own experience, even people who live in development such as condos, there are certain rules so that even if they had a garage, it might not even be allowed. So there are some restrictions, so this really opens it up.
Yes, and I think that would be true for many of the condos that were built previously to now, but the city has had an electric vehicle charging ordinance in place for a couple of years. And so there's no new development happening in this town that doesn't provide for EV chargers. But of course we have a lot of wonderful existing and even older housing that needs to be retrofitted to our new realities. And so this money was a grant from the state, which the Office of Sustainability and Innovations secured. And they will be installing these chargers. There's 3 locations, but 2 of them are in Ward 1, and I'm really pleased about that. We also received grant money to do an update of the old 4th Ward Historical District Survey, and that's an update that's needed, and so I'm excited that we're doing that.
And what's that survey about?
It really is about the conditions and count of buildings and, you know, the shape that they're in, and yeah. It should just be, I don't think it's a transformative thing, but I think it's a thing that we need to keep up with because we want to maintain and preserve and make sure that we aren't eroding that district.
Right.
And then I think one of the more, yes, I'll just say it, controversial things that we have coming is at Duvarin and Pontiac is the Village of Ann Arbor development. And one of the reasons that I think that my Ward 1 constituents may not love that I need to talk about this right now is that we've seen a lot of development in the north of our ward, north on Pontiac in particular.
And let me just ask you, does this have separate houses or multi-family buildings?
It's great that you ask. It is a mix of both. So there will be, I can tell you exactly what there will be. There will be 164 single-family townhouse styles. So those are attached homes. And then there will be 320 garden-style apartments. So this development is nice that there's a mix of both because that means there's a mix of price points. The townhomes that I mentioned will be fully electric. So that's heating and cooling and appliances. The entire development will be energy efficient, lighting and appliances, and also they're going above our construction code to use materials in constructing the buildings that will be efficient and heat, holding the heat and reflecting in the winter when we want it and reflecting it when we don't. And on a day like today, I don't know what happens because it was really cold this morning and it's kind of spring out there now. But another thing to know about this development is that within the apartments, they will range from 1 to 3 bedrooms. And so there will be a number of price points in the apartments themselves, which I think is really terrific. But something that I want to highlight, because I do feel that Ward 1 the city needs to grow, and Ward 1 has fostered a lot of that growth, accepted a lot of that growth. And there need to be some returns, some benefits for the residents. And this Ann Arbor village development does have a number of benefits. There will be a new covered bus shelter on the east side of Pontiac Trail, which we can definitely use. Oh, I'm sorry, it's on the west, not the east. And there will be covered bike hoops next to that shelter, and the roof of the bus shelter will extend to the bike hoops. So that's great. I mean, if there are people who are commuting and want to commute part by bike and hop on a bus, that is helpful. There are many ways you can imagine that being helpful to people. There will be a connection from Pontiac Trail to Leslie Park through this new development, which is terrific. We always want that, so for pedestrians and bicyclists. And then there will be a pedestrian crosswalk with a rapid rectangular flashing beacon, which is really important because I think the only way we can get cars to slow down on Pontiac is when there are those beacons, because they really just fly right past you if you're standing in a painted crosswalk.
And those beacons really flash at you and
yes.
make you pay attention.
They seriously do, or they make you feel incredibly guilty if you blow them off. So I think it takes a little time for people to get used to new drivers to get used to new crosswalks, and Pontiac Trail's been, really in a special problem in this
So
regard.
tell me, Lisa, what's the controversy?
It's really just that it's more burden on the infrastructure, and it's more traffic. And we really do, the traffic study, the Lower Town traffic study showed that we have serious traffic problems, both at the intersection of Pontiac and Barton and at the intersection of Pontiac and Duvarn, where currently there's just a stop sign for the Duvarn people. There's really nothing to slow traffic down from US 23 until they hit Barton, and that's part of why we have the trouble with speeding. But there's also just a lot of congestion in that area because of commuting. Now, in my view, adding local housing can help to mitigate that, because much of the congestion really is at peak commuter times. It's not so much from local traffic as it is from people coming in. And so we hope to mitigate that by providing more places for people to live. But another thing that this development will do is the developer has pledged to contribute $1.2 million to the construction of a roundabout at Duvarn and Pontiac, and that's much needed. The city has applied for federal funds to make up the difference, and we should be hearing in a couple of years. I wish it weren't that long, but at least we have it programmed now if the federal funding comes through, and that can be done.
Right, and it seems that the roundabouts, even in other cities, are becoming part of the solution of making traffic flow better, plus having the safety concerns of intersections.
Yes, and we do have a number of them. There's one on Nixon, which has been very, very helpful, Nixon and Duvarn. So yeah, we're doing, and then there's another one also down further toward Plymouth Road on Nixon. And so we are doing a lot in our really slightly younger parts of the city with roundabouts.
And what is the expected time frame of having the construction finished?
I don't know that. Yeah,
Okay.
They haven't broken ground yet because
so it's a ways.
Yes, it's a ways, because the site plan has come to Planning Commission and it was approved with conditions. It needs to go before council. So that hasn't happened yet, and that will take a bit, and then they can go to groundbreaking, and so I hope we'll see it soon. There's a landfill on that property, and so it has gone undeveloped because many people thought it really wasn't developable. And this developer has put a lot of energy into reclaiming what looked like an unviable site. And there was a lot of research, and there will be a fair amount of investment to mitigate the methane that's coming off of that landfill so that residences can be located, not on it by any means, but near it. And this is amazing because that space has sat there for decades. So just as, you know, it's a very efficient, it's a good infill project.
Right. And one of the things I've learned interviewing all the council members is that when you have a new construction, of a large development in construction, it affects so many different things in the city that it's not only time consuming to do the actual building of the construction, but to, again, make the infrastructure more amenable to, you know, have all the pieces in place, and it takes years. And I think that seems to have taken more time than it used to maybe 10 years ago. I'm not sure if I'm accurate, but it really is very involved, and it does take a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that we are at a period of needing to upgrade most of our infrastructure, and so some of these projects have probably gotten more complex than they were a while ago, because we're often replacing or resizing water mains. You know, in downtown, there's the broadband network that's being laid as well. So all of these projects have many dimensions. One thing that I want to happen, but I'm not at all looking forward to, is when we actually reconstruct North Main. And it's due for a reconstruction. I really hope that we are able to, we are exploring finding the funding right now for how to make it a multimodal transit corridor, not just what feels like a 4-lane highway. You know, it's a weird way to enter Ann Arbor, you know, but that will, I mean, I can't even fathom how we will manage without that stretch of North Main.
Well, that's a topic we will definitely be looking forward to hearing about in the near future.
In the near future, but not now. Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break
Great.
for just a short while, and we have a lot to talk about with the with all of the topics that we have. So we'll be right back. We want to hear from you, so please email us questions to ctn@a2gov.org or tweet us at #CTN in Arbor. We're taking a break now, and we'll be coming back with more from Ward 1 and Ann Arbor. Hi, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz, and we're back with Ward Talk, speaking with Lisa Disch from Ward 1. Lisa, we have a lot to go over, but one of the big pieces of news this month of November is we had an election. Not only, you know, a state and county, but we also had a city election. So tell us about that. Give us an update.
Yes, well, we have good news. We have 5 new council members joining us on council. It will be the most diverse council Ann Arbor has ever seen.
By diverse, what do you mean?
In terms of racial and ethnic diversity. It will, we are starting to be much more representative of Ann Arbor's population. And so Chris Watson will be joining us in Ward 2. Aisha Ghazi Edwin, who will be joining us in Ward 3. Dharma Ackman in Ward 4. Jen Cornell in Ward 5. And then joining me in Ward 1 is Cynthia Harrison. And
that's really interesting, because there's a balance of, for each ward, there are 2 council members, and each ward has 1 council member who's already in process of being on the council, and then you have a new council member for each of the wards. So that's really interesting. It's quite balanced.
Yes, well, when the council terms were extended to 4 years, it made it, great, because you can be on for 2 years and then someone else comes on and then.
Right. So every council member now has a period of 4 years that they are on the team. Okay.
Exactly. It's a 4-year term. Yep, exactly. So yeah, I'm very excited to welcome Cynthia in Ward 1. She is currently a program manager at the Ann Arbor Center for Independent Living, and so one of her specialties is how to adapt structures for people living with disabilities. And we are updating our parks at this time, and so that's something that she can really bring to which she can really bring that expertise. We also passed the Community Climate Action Millage, and I am just overjoyed about that, because one of the projects that I have been working on is Strategy 5 of our carbon neutrality plan, A20.
So could you just tell us exactly what this involves for the public? How has it changed?
Well, we didn't have any special funding earmarked for our carbon neutrality plan. All that money was coming from other kinds of allocations or from the general fund. And so the community has really stood up and said, yes, we want Ann Arbor to be a model for how especially we can both decarbonize and build resilience. Because as you know, if you're following the international discussions right now, we have missed what some thought was an important decarbonization deadline. And I don't think we need to get all frightened about that. I think there is movement still. But what it means is that we need to be much more attentive to resilience and adaptation, because we're going to be living in a damaged but still habitable world as we decarbonize. And so in Ann Arbor, we are paying attention to both of those things. And so we've enacted, the community stood up to enact a $6.5 million, that'll be $6.5 million annually for 20 years.
That's a lot
millage.
of money.
It is wonderful.
Annually?
Annually
Wow.
for 20 years, yes. And so this money, among other things, I think residents have seen that there's solar going up on city facilities and also on their neighbors' roofs, thanks to our Solarize program that has put over 3 megawatts of new clean energy in Ann Arbor, just using neighbors' roofs, and it has saved them over $1 million, those neighbors, in upfront costs and in bills over time. So that's been a really exciting program, and that has been really one of the things at the forefront has been decarbonization and shifting to solar. But what we also need to do is work on the circular economy, and that is not a household word, but what the circular economy is it is not letting any person, place, or thing go to waste. The standard, normal capitalist economy is a linear economy that drives us from purchase through use or consumption to waste. And of course, manufacturers want to speed that up, so they build things for planned obsolescence. The circular economy reverses that whole way of thinking, and it thinks about how can we get more life out of the goods that we purchase? How can we not waste any person, no matter how young or old they are? And how do we cherish and keep alive and vibrant the places, the habitats that we live in? And so we will be using some of this climate action millage money to expand, to actually have our compost and recycling working better for multifamily residences. They already have the service, but there are some hitches and glitches in making it work for these large residential places. We'll be making renewable energy accessible for lower income households, so there will be electrification of the Bryant community together with Community Action Network, which got a $500,000 grant to support that work. They do amazing work. And we will be able to serve a wider range of people in need of help with weatherization. And this is really something especially for seniors, many of whom live in older houses. And it's very expensive to do. And the new millage will allow us to extend aid to a wider range of incomes than we're currently limited to by the county's standards. We can say, oh, you can make a little more than just that, because as we know, there are many people who don't count as income constrained, but who are income constrained, especially where it comes to investment in infrastructure. So all of that is going to happen with this money, and I'm so grateful to Ann Arbor's.
So this is a very exciting time.
Oh my gosh, yes. I mean, there's nothing like being elected. I was elected in 2020 when the affordable housing millage was passed. And so being elected is great, but being elected and given the resources to solve problems it's beyond great. I mean, it's so wonderful. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to talk about. That's what I'm most excited about the election. If you have any other questions.
Right. No, I'm just amazed at how exciting it is, and the fact that this program is actually an annual thing, so it doesn't just happen one year.
Oh, right.
It's a long term.
Yes, a millage is always
developmental.
Yeah, a millage is always more than 1 year. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, and something just came up this past week with the last meeting, in which there was a change made in the policies of public comment.
Yes.
And I really wanted to cover this week because there seems to be some controversy and possibly misunderstanding of what the purpose of this, what is the change, and why is it for the betterment of having meetings and having public interaction. So tell us about the changes in public comment.
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
So we have expanded public comment and made it more accessible. So there will now be 15 extra minutes. So general public comment.
What is it now?
Okay, so the current is 30 minutes. This is the public comment reserve time, which happens at the beginning of the meeting.
Right, and everyone has, what, 3 minutes to speak?
They have up to 3 minutes.
Up to 3 minutes.
Right, and so we've added 15 more minutes, so that could be 5 more people. It could be more people if people are more brief in their comments. But, and that's important. It's important to add those 15 minutes at the beginning of the meeting when everyone is fresh. But in addition, it used to be that you would call in at 8 a.m. and try to get yourself on that list, and it was a kind of a first come, first serve thing. And everybody, because it was first come, first serve, everybody who really wanted to get on the list, especially if it was for a controversial item, had to call in right at 8 a.m.
So it was hit or miss.
It was hit or miss, and it was kind of like trying to get a ticket to a rock concert, you know, or to the Berlin Philharmonie. Yeah. But but now what we've done is you have between 8 and 1 p.m. to call to get on that reserved time, to get on the list. And
the morning of the meeting.
The morning of the meeting. So Monday morning from 8 till 1. You call between then. And then it's not first come, first serve. You will be given a speaking slot depending on whether or not you're addressing an agenda item. That pushes you up as a priority. Have you spoken at the previous 2 meetings? Are you speaking on an item that's not on the agenda? And you can do any of those things, but you get a higher priority slot, depending. Now, and then you still have between 1 to 5. You can still call and get yourself on the list, but you can't be on that prioritized list. You just call, and if the 45 minutes are over and not everyone who called on that day from 8 to 1. Or rather, from 8 to 5, if they haven't all had a chance to speak, there will be a time later in the agenda where we will finish taking comments from everyone who called up to speak. And so it is an expanded public comment period. What we have done away with is comments from council members at the very end of the meeting and comments from the public at the very end of the meeting.
Comments in reply to the input from...
No, no, there is, I can reply to people who call in at any point in the meeting that I want to. If they were, as long as they were talking on an agenda item, I can always reply to them. And council members have comment at the beginning of the meeting, where if we would want to reply to something that someone called in and said at the beginning of the meeting, we could do that. There has been a second period of public comment and council member comment at the very end of the meeting. And that is usually not a productive time.
That's kind of late in the night, too,
It can
isn't
be.
it? Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah.
I mean, on a good night, it's around 11. But at a long meeting night, that could be 1 or 2 in the morning. And believe me, nobody is at their best then. And that, I will just be honest with you, that has tended to be pot shot time, either by council members towards other council members and sometimes from members of the public. Mostly not members of the public, though. They're actually pretty polite when they call up. But still, nobody wants to stay up until 2 a.m. to call into a public meeting, and nobody wants to add to the urgency of their morning. I got a call at 8 a.m. to City Hall, so I make sure that I get in and I can talk about this thing that's happening in my neighborhood. That's just wrong. I mean, people are trying to get to work, people are trying to get their children to school, people are taking care of their elderly parents. There's a million things we're all doing at 8 a.m., and we don't need to put another high priority item there. And so this whole change both expands the amount of time that we are giving to public comment and takes the pressure off getting yourself on the list, which is the way it should be.
Right. It sounds to be a lot more fair and easier to process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it will be. I think it's really a change for the better.
So why is there confusion where some people think that in some way it's not good?
Well, people, rather than lead with what you and I led with, which was the expansion of the time and the change of the system and the change and the greater accessibility of this system, they lead with, you're taking away the comment at the end. And, if you really think the comment at the end is valuable, I suppose you will feel bad about that. But I can tell you that very few people call in at the end. Yeah. It tended to be the same folks in the public, and I welcome them. I'm glad to hear from them. But there just aren't that many people who are so interested that they stay up till that late in the morning to call in.
Right. And I wonder also how many people who are watching this live on television stay up to the very, very end of the meeting.
They don't. Yeah. And so what is the benefit of council members speaking? We've had plenty of times to speak throughout the meeting. There is no need for a last word from council. So,
well, you've really enlightened us on that, and I thank you very much for that. We only have a minute or two left, so let's just wrap it up and whatever you want to say about how things are going. It sounds to me like you're very excited about where, with the new makeup of the council and all of these projects moving forward. This is really a very exciting time for the council.
Yeah, it is a very exciting time. It's a very exciting time for Ann Arbor. It's a time of transition. And transition is anxiety provoking, because you know what came before, but you don't know what's coming next. And you may feel a sense of loss about what came before and a sense of, oh gosh, I don't know. And it depends on your personality, if that's mystery and excitement or fear. And we want to map this transition with as much optimism and innovation as I believe we're capable of.
And what came to my mind, you just said the word, is we're ending on a very optimistic note, that we have a lot of problems, a lot of challenges, but it looks like the council is really finding ways to work through some of these and to make a difference. So I want to thank you for visiting us and enlightening us on these topics.
Thank you. I really appreciate the chance to speak with you.
Okay. Remember to join us for a new episode every month. We want to hear from you, and you can email us at ctn@a2gov.org, attention, Ward Talk. You can also follow CTN and ask questions on Twitter at twitter.com/CTN Ann Arbor. We'll make sure to include your questions. For Ward Talk, I'm Bonnie Gabowitz. Until next month.